Here's where physicists are stuck. I'm talking about the most brilliant people. They know from Einstein's theory of general relativity that masses create gravity. So when we see out in the far reaches of the universe, we see light being bent, and you don't see enough mass of the stars there that we have, then physicists say, so there's more mass there, creating more gravity than we know of. They call it dark matter. But maybe they have it completely wrong. Maybe there is a different way to manipulate the four-dimensional space-time. Maybe there is a different way to create gravity than strictly by mass, far beyond anything that humanity knows. But you've got the example staring us right in the face, the testimony of David Fravor, and everybody seems to miss it. Now, let's talk about the implications of this. Let's say there is a machine, there is a device, there is a technique for changing the four-dimensional space-time. If you could compress, they're talking about, by the way, bending of space-time. It's talking about light going past a massive object that bends. But that light crossing the mass could go bend this way, could be going this way. It has to be bending space-time in all directions. It has to be compressing space-time around the mass. So let's say we have, through an alien technology, which again shows why this is so critical. Let's say we have the ability to compress space-time through some technique. This is now unbelievable. You want to make a you want to make an atomic bomb? Do you know how an atomic bomb is made? You take radioactive material in a ball, and as the atoms, uranium-235, plutonium, whatever you want to talk about, as the atom breaks apart through its natural radioactivity, and then particles of protons or neutrons, depending on what the material is, come flying out. Some of them will just go out into space, and on occasion they'll hit another atom, and then that atom will break, and then that will release some more protons or neutrons, and they'll fly into space or occasionally hit another atom. If you take that ball of that material and you compress it very tightly so that when the atom breaks apart, the particles that come out most likely, or much more likely, hit another atom, then you get this chain reaction where now one atom is breaking apart, it's splitting others, and that's how you get a nuclear explosion. How do you create a nuclear weapon? You take this material, this radioactive material, in a perfect ball, put explosives all around it, and detonate the explosives all at the same instant. So you compress the ball inward, and then those atoms are so close together that the particles coming off most likely or very likely hit other atoms. You get this a massive explosion. Well, what if we could compress this material without putting explosives around it, but by somehow concentrating space-time and bringing it together, kind of like what happens in a black hole? That would be revolutionary. Let's look at the other side, and I'm not going to talk about a hydrogen bomb. I'm going to talk about nuclear fusion energy. Now, instead of breaking atoms apart, you can bring atoms together. And it's called fusion. And the world has been working on fusion for about, 50, 60 years to try to make fusion reactors. Instead of creating radioactivity by splitting atoms apart, you're going to bring atoms together. They get very close to each other, hydrogen atoms, and then what takes over is something called a strong nuclear force, and they merge together. Hydrogen becomes helium, and it releases energy. Now, the big issue with using nuclear fusion to make energy is that it takes a lot of energy to compress the hydrogen atoms together. You have to use lasers to try to compress them together, magnetic fields to try to take a spinning plasma, compress it together. It's very difficult to do. And if you put in more energy trying to compress it together so it will cause fusion, then the energy you get out of it, it's not creating energy. But what if we learn about this new technology, this alien technology, and we can just compress these hydrogen atoms together using little energy to do it because we're somehow manipulating space-time, compressing them together? You would have free energy for the world. The implications of this are enormous. So, but the key thing is, with all the experts and the physicists and the military people and congressional people and all the people on YouTube and the presenters, this piece of evidence has been sitting in front of us all, and nobody realized it. If this UFO or UAP is sitting over water, and that water is bubbling up, and then when the thing goes away, it stops bubbling. There you go. This thing is creating gravity, and that's what's causing a vacuum above that water, causing it to evaporate and causing the white water. Also, look at what Commander Fravor says. He says this UFO there was sort of hopping back and forth. Again, what we've seen is these things seem to travel through space-time without interacting, without being affected by what we consider the physical reality around us. Look, I don't know how the alien technology works, but jumping back and forth probably has something to do with the way this technology is working. It's been reported by United States Navy pilots and others that these UFOs or UAPs seem to not interact, as I said, with the physical world around us. They go from outer space to right above the water. They go in the water, they come out again. If they are able to manipulate space-time by compressing space-time and creating gravity, but also stretching space-time to create a vacuum, you could see how they could create a vacuum in front of them underwater, splitting space-time, just running right through it, and the water can close up behind them. Same thing entering the atmosphere with no heat trail behind it, no tail, nothing. That could certainly be how these things are able to travel and ignore the restrictions of the physical universe as we know it. Before I end, let me just tell you something. The public thinks that physicists know the secrets of the universe. Sorry to say it, most of them don't. What physicists do is they try to make mathematical equations that will describe how the universe works. And these physicists there are groundbreaking physicists. There's Sir Isaac Newton, created equations that we've never seen before. There's Albert Einstein. There's Schrodinger, the Schrodinger equation. New equations, new ways of looking at things that nobody ever thought of before. And it's opened a whole world of exploration. But the vast majority of physicists are never able to create anything conceptually totally new about that, like that. They are just they're just using mathematics with, by the way, they don't just draw equations. They say, now, this equation means this. So if that's happening, then the equation should have to be changed or go this way or that way. And they make different assumptions and use different equations to try to answer different situations because they don't have what's called a unified field theory, one theory that will work for everything. And people at the most advanced levels of science, and I talked about this in my video series explaining all of science about 2 years ago on YouTube. People at the most advanced levels, where they're going back to Einstein and Schrodinger and Heisenberg and Niels Bohr and back in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, and the most advanced people today also understand that the very complex mathematics that our physicists do may actually not represent what's really going on under the surface, and a lot of it is manipulated or created by physicists to explain this way, that way. And now one way they found to try to explain, hopefully, most things is string theory, assuming there's these little strings throughout the universe. But in fact, they still make up different scenarios. Well, let's see. If we assume it's strings, we can make it up this way to explain these things and make it up that way to explain those things. But they keep making it up. They don't know. They really don't know. And these are just paradigms. These are models that we use to think of things. One of the most incredible things about Albert Einstein is he found that 30 or 40 years later, there are things that his theories would have predicted that then were tested and were found to be true. Almost everything that they do now doesn't work that way. So doubt the physicists. Almost all of them are academics. Doubt their connection to the real world, having to perform, and understand that these UFOs are real. The evidence for the United States Navy, from the pilots, from so much is clearly real. The technology is way beyond anything that we know, and who knows where this is going. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck to you all. Have good health and much success. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.